Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Plymouth Select Board meeting Tuesday, February 7th, 2023. Could you please all join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will call this meeting to order. Before we get into the agenda, I would just like to recognize the Boy Scouts BSA who's here, and they're going to be trying to get their government badge. Is it government or community service? I'm not sure. Citizenship in the community. So everyone that is here, please be mindful that we have children in the room. So the first order of business is the Jordan Hospital Club Polar Plunge. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Helm, please read the...
I get to? Great. Okay. In accordance with Statute 2475 and pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be conducted via remote means and in person. Members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. Tune into PAC TV government cable access channels, Comcast Channel 15 or Verizon Channel 47, and watch the meeting as it is aired live, or watch the meeting live on PAC TV website at pactv.org. Members of the public who wish to participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner. In person, Great Hall located at the second floor at Plymouth Town Hall, 26 Court Street, Plymouth, Massachusetts, or remotely, go to the town website under the Select Board page and click on the Zoom webinar link.
Thank you, Mr. Helm. And now we have a polar bear amongst us that I think probably wants to talk about something. No hitting. We can't hit in here. So go ahead.
Good evening, and thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm here with Jordan, the mascot for the Jordan Hospital Club's Polar Plunge, and my name is Catherine McKenna, and I'm here to just take a few minutes of your time to let you know that actually not this coming Saturday, March 4th, will be the 21st annual Polar Plunge. And so 20 years ago, Jordan and I were at the old town hall talking about the Polar Plunge, and it was so well received that we are still going after 20 years. Over that time, the plunge, and I'm talking about the corporate sponsors, the donors, the plungers, have raised over $1.5 million for the Cancer Center at BID Plymouth. What's extraordinary is the enthusiasm and support of the community, because the bulk of these donations are in $5, $10, $25 increments. Yes, we have larger donors, and of course we welcome and appreciate those larger numbers, but this is really a grassroots effort by the broad community to support and thank BID Plymouth. It's a great day, March 4th. I'm sure many of you have probably been, I'm hoping, or a few of you have been. I know over the years we've had a number of town selectmen who have plunged, but it is a great day. The hardest thing is getting the donors. You show up on March 4th at Nelson's Beach with your donations and a registration form in hand, and just enjoy the day as it unfolds. So there's music by Rudy Sampson and Ken Grady. There's food donated by everyone from Panera, Quintals, also Mary Lou's Coffee and Hot Chocolate. Costumes, trophies awarded for best costume by families. And so it's just a really great day. Plunge is fast. It's fast, furious, and painless. You run in and you turn around and run out so fast you don't even know what you've done. And then it's followed by a great award ceremony at the PYC, and the food there is donated by Mamma Mia's. So it's just, and DJ Jean is there. So it's just a wonderful thank you to our plungers for supporting BID, supporting the Cancer Center, and all that money does stay here. And because so many in the community have donated, small businesses have donated so much, virtually all the money raised is then forwarded. Last year that was $91,000, which which went to support the Patients Assistance Fund, which is this wonderful fund that helps patients and their families who are struggling with this disease, paying anything from babies or childcare or prescription drugs, those kinds of costs, and additionally the new breast center at Exit 5 or Exit 13, I think. No, Exit 5. You know where that is. So anyway, thank you very much. We hope you'll consider pledging, just even coming down to support March 5th. And Jordan is here right now. I'm going to hand this over. Thank you. Thank you very much. JordanHospitalClub.org.
Thank you very much. I'm Jan Rushforth, and I've been with the Plunge for 21 years, and I'm here to talk about tradition. It has been a tradition in the town. The town has supported it tremendously. The town hall and the townhouse has supported it overwhelmingly, between police and fire and DPW and trash, and even town managers and assistant town managers. It is tradition that when you are a new town manager or assistant town manager, you lead the community and you take the plunge. So we tonight have your plunge papers for you. Mr. Dembrisi, we're sorry you're sick, but Jordan is leaving some cough drops here for you so that you could be better. And Mr. Quintal has asked if he could be the first one to donate to your plunge.
Bring the papers right over.
Let me bring these papers right over.
Well, he can jump out of the plane into the water. But
You can pass it around. You just do one for both of them, and that's it. Thank you very much.
thank you.
One more thing. I've been told that that Mrs. Cavaco is quite a seamstress, and this is a costume event, and we give a trophy out for the best costume. So if you would like to whip something up for the boys for that night, that day at the Polar Plunge, I'm sure that we'll all just love it, and they could bring the first place trophy back to the townhouse.
You really are getting us all into this, aren't you?
I aim to please. So we thank you very much. Look forward to it. And Derek, if you want, I'll walk your little paper around here and get the employees to. You can even do a team. We have teams. So we have Plymouth North that has teams and Plymouth South that have teams. So if you want to have a townhouse team, that would even be better. Thank you very much. Feel better.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's March 3rd, right?
And the police have a team. So maybe we could have a little competition going.
Oh, that's a little competition. Yeah.
Thank you. Feel better.
Jan, it's March 3rd, right?
March 4th.
4th. Okay,
Yes.
4th. We'll put them with the mail.
What time is that again?
It's early.
The plunge itself is 12 noon sharp, but Jordan will pick you up at 10:30.
10:30.
And Dickie, you'll take that plunge.
All right. It's my drill weekend,
Yes.
but I'll have to call my commander to see if he'll excuse me for 4 hours.
You're a good sport.
Yes, we have to excuse Derek. He's sick and wasn't even supposed to be on Zoom, even though his boss told him to not be on Zoom. He just ignored it. So here we are. And I appreciate you being here, Derek. So, all right. So everybody sign the pledge form so we can get Derek in the water. I see something pink and fluorescent in his future. Maybe sequin. What do you think, Dick?
I'm a judge.
Sweet.
This is what happens when you don't attend the meetings.
Are we all set, Mrs. Rushforth? Okay. Moving on to the next order of business, permits and administrative notes. If the board has no questions on any of them, I ask for a motion to move as a group.
Madam Chair, I think there's 14 sets of open meeting and executive session minutes.
Right.
totaling almost 100 pages. I haven't had a chance. We just got this over the weekend. If I had to make a motion, I would ask for another 2 weeks. I hate to put Mr. Sinesi through this, but that's an incredible volume of meeting minutes.
Don't you read your stuff, John? Doesn't your time machine do like,
There was,
Evelyn Wood, read fast?
so,
Okay.
I'd prefer,
Do we?
I would make a motion that we table administrative note 1 through 14 until Tuesday, February 21st.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Okay, we're going to table those, Anthony.
Thank you.
And the rest now. Do you have any questions on the rest of them? And I look to move them as a group. Motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay.
So I'm curious now, did you start reading from the back? Because that's what we voted, we should have voted all the first. You see what I'm saying? Oh, all right, okay.
Okay. Next is a public hearing, aquaculture license new. George Caldwell IV, and I believe our harbor master is here, and so is Mr. Caldwell.
Good evening. So we're obviously here for George Caldwell, and he's looking for an aquaculture site expansion. George has had 2.57 acres in private tidelands over off of Saquesh, the northwest side, and he's looking to expand that to 6.57 acres. I did provide a memo that we're in support. We did discuss it at the Harbor Committee as well. The one concern that had come up was the area that is subtidal, so that's the area that's below the low water mark, and boats may use that area to transit. The concern about a hazard to navigation. George and I have talked since I issued this memo, and he wants to try some different ways to raise his seed. And there's marking of gear that's required, so I'm comfortable with him marking the gear, and we see if there are any impacts to navigation moving forward. So as far as the condition, I think it would just be to have him mark the gear as per the regulations, and then if there's any concerns that come up the next season or season after that, then we will address those. And George is here if you have any questions for George.
Great. Does anybody have any questions?
Move as presented with the regulations.
Moved by Mr. Quintal and seconded by Mr. Bratz, or any discussion? All those in favor? Oh. We're in a pub, okay. Sure, you have to go to the podium.
My name is Michael Duane. I've had a house on Saquesh, which this plot, I believe, is right in front of my house, for over 40 years. When the oyster permits first came out, I applied for one, and I was denied because it wasn't a permanent resident. And I thought it was very unfair because I've been paying taxes down there for 40 years, not using the school system, not using the fire equipment, and very rarely in the summertime using the police department. And like I said, I was denied being able to get a permit, oyster permit, in the town of Plymouth. I have no objection to this person, whatever he does, with all the best to him, raising oysters. But I think it was wrong that I was denied because I wasn't a permanent resident. That's my speech.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Is any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Congratulations, Mr. Caldwell.
Thank you.
The next public hearing is craft beer cellar, change of location.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. It's good to see you.
Good to see you guys too.
Okay. If you-
So we're essentially looking to move across the street. We're going from 31 Main Street to 44 Main Street.
Okay.
Tatum Stewart?
Did you hear that? Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Stewart? Mrs.? No?
I just have a question. So the reason you're expanding your store,
My store footprint will stay the same, but will be located inside a new business coming
Right.
downtown that will have more services for locals and and visitors.
that's exciting. So I think you have a great business, and I'm looking forward to see you get open over there, and good luck.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I appreciate the board's support over the years.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Mahoney, seconded by Mr. Helm. Discussion. All those in favor?
Abstain.
4 in favor, 1 abstention. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Next is the Edward Santos Community Service Award proposal. Could you please state your name?
Sure. I'm Michael Gallerani. I'm not a resident of Plymouth, I'm a resident of Norwood, just so that for the record. And thank you for having me, and good evening. In the day we live in today, when communities are severely divided, when public officials and appointed officials of all ilk, they're trying to do the right thing, find themselves the target of threats, betrayal, slander, and even violence, the challenge to attract people to community service is that much greater. From 40 or more years ago, when I first entered public service and I was sitting in Anthony's seat, I remember saying to someone, what are we going to do when everybody retires? Because I looked around and everybody was my age. They had been people that I went to high school with. And the reality was that someday all the employees, all the community, all the committees, everybody would be moving aside, and who's going to replace them? The response that I got that day, which I have kept in my mind all these years, was, I don't care, I won't be here. Well, I cared. And so for all these years, I've cared very much about who's going to replace us all. Tonight I'm here to talk about Ed Santos. And there's no one in my lifetime that I've known that was more of a community service minded individual than Ed. He loved Plymouth beyond belief, even more than I did in my time. And I think it behooves us to step up and honor all those years and all that he did. The list of things he did goes on and on and on. You start with Jordan Hospital and then BID, the Jordan Hospital, the Jordan Health Foundation, the Cranberry Hospice, Plymouth Rotary. He was also a Paul Harris Fellow, the Chamber of Commerce, the Grand Knights of Columbus. He was the Knights of Columbus. He was a Grand Knight. The Plymouth Public Library, the Boys and Girls Club, the Y, and the town's personnel board. He was a director at Sacred Heart, a director at Bridgewater State, and director and vice president of Plymouth 400th Committee. And that's just the beginning of the list. And even at 92, he continued to do things. On the day he passed away, he was at a meeting earlier that day, making sure that the money from the charitable foundation was going in the direction that it should. I have been on this course of trying to have a tribute to him and honor him since the day he passed away. I turned to one of my friends at the funeral and says, if there's any way that there's a statue, it's at. Knowing that we don't put statues up anymore, I'm here to propose that the town embrace the concept of a Edward W. Santos Community Service Award. I'm asking for two things. One is that the town find a place to put an installation in that tells Ed's community service story, and on the flip side or next to it, depending on how much money I can raise, the winners of the annual award. And the annual award, I would ask that the board make the announcement in November each year who wins that award. And the process for getting to that award is you nominated 2 nomination periods per year. There's a committee outside of town government. One of the seats would be someone from Ed's family that would review the nominees, recommend a winner, present it to the board, and the board make the decision. And all they get for winning is an award. No stipend, no financial gain, nothing. And you've got to do good things. In this town, there are some people that have done some very good things and continue to do so. We just need to encourage the generations and the generations and the generations to realize the community service, no matter what all the crazies out there think, that you still do. So, questions?
I don't have any questions, and I think it's a great idea, and he certainly deserves that type of recognition. But I do know that we have a memorials committee. I don't know if it's active any longer. No. And I know that, well, if it's not active any longer, then I think it's something that we just start over. So I don't know if I'm trying to think of how to go about this, because I know there were certain things in place. We had bylaws that it had to be a year, policies, so, now's a good time to start, because it'll probably take a year to get there anyway, so. But I don't know now, like, who do we begin the process with? Anthony?
We can work with the requester to determine
Okay.
the feasibility of reforming that committee,
Okay.
determining how long it's been, stagnant.
Yep. Okay. And then you'll make a recommendation back to the board?
If the board wants that, yes.
Please, yes. Mr. Helm?
I actually brought the Memorials Committee up a year or so ago because one of the members suggested that we need to reform it. So, Anthony, I suggest that you talk to Roxanne Whitback.
Okay.
She has the most knowledge about this.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Blutzer?
I'd just like to make a few comments, and I don't know if Mr. Quinto's got a lot more years, more experience working with Mr. Santos. I'm sure he's going to agree with everything I say, but if you wanted to say something first.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Like I said, I'm the new guy, but I can just tell you, looking at this packet right here, says it all, right here, what he's been involved in. And the hardest thing, Mike, for you and the committee, is going to find out where do you put that statue, because there's so many places that would be appropriate for that statue. I mean, there really is. I was involved at the courthouse we started years ago. The Therese Murray, as Kevin Canty can attest, the Therese Murray Citizen of the Year Awards, and the distinguished people on that plaque. There's a plaque at the courthouse with Phyllis Hughes' name. with Lenny Vaz, with Ed Santos was, Peter Hogan was another one. We gave it to, I believe, Judge Manahan, and just people that just huge in our community. And when Ed got it, he was humbled and gracious, and I was so proud to be there, and as you were too, Kevin, I know. But I spoke to you before, Mike, about our town manager, our new town manager. One of the things I asked him to look into was that pavilion down in the state park. I wanted to actually help tourism and help to buy that state park. I was trying to, and Derek worked, and we attempted, and I don't know if we've given up, but it's kind of, it's kind of a struggle. We're trying to see if we could purchase that piece down there. And the idea I had is to rename that pavilion where you see the shows on Wednesday night and Thursday, in the Philharmonic, and that hat shell, or whatever you want to call it. And that was, Ed Santos is the one that gave the money to build that pavilion. And I wanted to name it the Ed Santos Pavilion. I thought that would have been a great appropriate place. There's one place you could put a statue. But I mean, like I said, there's so many, you look at this brochure, that's the hardest thing you're going to have is, where do you put Ed's statue? But I tell you, we should do everything we can to, he deserves to have a statue for everything that he's done for economic development and for charitable things that he's done in this community. So
And if I may, when you said economic development, I think I neglected, because it's just part of my very fabric that I think everybody knows it. But Ed, back in the 60s, when this town was basically on its knees economically, 16% unemployment rate, manufacturers just leaving. Ed and others like Ed stepped in. And I can go through the names: Vinnie Nicoli, Bob Fattini, Charlie Stassinos, Freddie Witzberger, Manny Valent, Ronnie Ferrioli, and it goes on and on and on. Those guys stepped in. At the end of it, they had assembled an $8 million account just on building out the industrial park. On top of the fact that they built out an industrial park, and they created thousands of jobs, incredible tax revenue for the town, and still had, as a nonprofit, $8 million that then got dispersed in the community. $1 million to the hospital. They also bought the seats for Memorial Hall. The Boys and Girls Club, first they gave the land, then they paid off the mortgage. Pilgrim Hall, Camp Clark, and again, the list goes on and on and on. And he lived on until the day that Eddie passed away, as you know. So from an economic, we should just have a statue for him for the economic development accomplishments. But it goes way, way, way beyond that. And I was fortunate enough to be present for a lot of it, because if Eddie was involved somehow, I got involved. And there's many, many of us in public service, business, and just guys that are doing the right thing, that stand on Eddie's shoulders. And I think that's an important part of this story as well. So thank you.
I commend you for what you're doing.
Well, I think at this point that I think Mr. Gallerani start working with Anthony. Let's come up with a plan so we can move forward, and then bring it back to the board, and we'll have that discussion. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Perfect.
Sure. Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next order of business is public comment. Is there anything, Mr. Lydon?
Madam Chair, we also have Meg Sheehan that would like to speak during public comment on Zoom.
Steve Lydon, resident of Plymouth. I wasn't going to say anything about this, but I Ed Santos about 5 years ago, and really didn't know him. And this is when we were getting air conditioners for the elderly. And he came over to Kenny Bukes and myself, and he goes, handed us an envelope, and he goes, this is for you, and to get some air conditioners, and I don't want anyone to know. There was a check in there for $5,000, and he gave it to us, and he didn't want anyone to know anything. And ever since that time, every time I run into him, I'd say, are you cold enough? And he'd laugh. And but that's not what I really wanted to speak about. I went to the meeting they had down the walkthrough at Hedges Pond. I want to thank the town manager, Barry DeVazio, and Bill Culhane. A lot of issues were brought up from all the stakeholders and all the people that were there. Everyone gave their 2 cents of what the issues were, and it was constructive. It wasn't negative. There was no arguments about anything. It was just a bunch of, people's ideas on how to make that place work. And I'm glad to see that the CPC is going to use administrative funds to get a survey on the building to see if the building's worth saving or not. It might take a year, but at least it'll be done right. But I want to thank those town employees that come down, because they listened and they answered a lot of questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Meg Sheehan, who I believe is on Zoom. Go ahead, Ms. Sheehan. You're muted.
My name is Margaret Sheehan. I'm an attorney with 40 years of practice in Massachusetts. I'm a Plymouth native. I'm from Rocky Pond Road. I'm here to speak about the Zoning Board of Appeals hearing on January 4th. On January 4th, 2023, I appeared as an attorney before the Zoning Board of Appeals on behalf of Community Land and Water Coalition, a public interest group whose mission is to protect our drinking water and our environment. This matter involved an appeal seeking enforcement of our zoning bylaws at a sand and gravel mining site. I sent a letter to the Board of Selectmen on January 9th regarding the conduct of this hearing, and it was sent to Betty Cavaco, Chair, with copies to the board members. And I'd like to read the letter, and this is regarding Zoning Board of Appeals public hearing, January 4th, 2023, case number 4077. Dear Chair Cavaco and board members, this is to bring to your attention the improper conduct of the Chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals, Michael Main, on January 4th, 2023, in running the public hearing in case number 4077. I request that you watch the recording of the hearing posted on YouTube and available at this link, which is included in the letter. Please watch to the end so that you can hear the testimony from the public, including neighbors. The Zoning Board of Appeals is created by statute, General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 12. It is the ultimate authority responsible for carrying out the purposes of the town's bylaw, which are to protect the public health, safety, and welfare in the environment. You may refer to Zoning Bylaw Article 1, Section 201-1. The Zoning Board of Appeals is a quasi-judicial body and has a duty to act as an objective, unbiased, and professional adjudicator of matters before it. Do you consider what is shown on the video to be an objective, unbiased, and professional Zoning Board of Appeals chair? Very truly yours, Margaret Sheehan, with a copy to the town manager. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like that I received no response to that letter, even though I did ask for it to be read at two select board meetings under letters. So thank you for the opportunity to read the letter to the board and so that the public can be informed of what transpired on January 4th.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anthony? No. Okay, the next order of business is the Climate Resiliency Planner update with Mark Rail. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. I was planning to be there in person with you all, but I'm not feeling well, so I didn't think anyone would want me in the same room.
We do not, correct.
So it's been about 6 months now that I've worked for the town of Plymouth, and I thought it would be appropriate to come before you to provide you and the community with just a brief update on some of the things that we're working on. I know that you're aware of some of the items, but thought I would go in a little more detail so that the community is aware as well. So one of the first things we started working on here was the integration of electric vehicles into the town fleet. But it's really an effort to reduce costs to the town on fuel. We were able to reduce the purchase price of these vehicles through the Mass EVIP grant program by $7,500 per vehicle, which will total $37,500, which is a real benefit to the community. So we're on track to purchase 5, as I mentioned. One of those vehicles is a Ford Lightning, and then the rest are Chevy Bolts. We currently have 3 of the 5, and 2 of the Bolts are on order. And this endeavor to me has really been a success due to your leadership, the town manager and the assistant town manager's leadership as well. And I just wanted to offer a special thanks to Ben Jesse at the DPW for all of his help in acquiring these vehicles. And then in addition to the vehicle purchases, we are installing 4 additional charging ports up on the Cornish parking lot behind Town Hall. So this will provide for a total of 6 charge ports. And we are waiting on approval for funding from the Mass EVIP program again that will fully fund the purchase of the unit. So this will not cost the taxpayer anything. In addition to the electric vehicles, we are working with the Woodwell Climate Research Center in Woods Hole. They are doing a climate risk assessment on coastal flood impacts as well as inland flooding impacts. And this is funded through philanthropic funding that they received. So again, no cost to the community. And I really see it as potentially a great tool to assist in planning. And I look forward to presenting those findings to the board in the near future. We're expecting that the results from this modeling should be done in the next couple of months. It's been a little bit slower than expected, but we're not in a real hurry, so that's good.
Great.
In addition to that, we are working on the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program, which, as you may know, is administered by the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. Plymouth is an MVP community. There's 2 phases to the MVP program. There's the planning phase, which is the first phase, and Plymouth completed that in 2009. And then the second phase of the program is the action phase, which is where you really receive some grant funds to take action on the planning phase. So a couple of years ago, the town received funding to study impacts of saltwater intrusion into the freshwater aquifer, and that study is wrapping up. And so we're planning for the next grant round, which will be opening in March. We submitted with the help of Tiffany Park to the staff at the MVP program 2 projects that we will receive feedback on, which will be important as we put together our full application. Those projects are the Bartlett Road Bridge project, which includes culvert and stormwater management improvements, and another project around the reduction of heat island effect in North Plymouth, which will include tree plantings and installation of cool surfaces on one of the parking lots in North Plymouth to just get to kind of run it as a pilot process. So we're looking forward to feedback from the state on that. And then we have the Green Communities designation. As you know, Patrick Farah and the Energy Committee have really been working on this issue for quite a while, and it's finally come to fruition through their dedication and hard work. The program is administered through the Department of Energy Resources. The purpose of the program is to reduce the town's energy consumption by 20% over 5 years. And so the town received a designation grant of $270,000, and we have hired Guardian Energy as our consultant for these projects going forward. And we're working with the schools and the town's facilities directors to make sure that we are keeping them in the loop and picking the right projects that will have the most impact. And then the last thing that has been really on the radar more recently with the select board providing funding for a climate action plan. As I was before you last week, this plan is going to really be the kickoff point for a lot of the work we have to do together, and will really serve as a guide for not only the town government, but for the community at large. And so with that, just want to say that this is really all just the beginning of the work we're going to do. And I really look forward to working with all of you and members of the community as we prepare Plymouth to be more resilient and sustainable in all ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Reel? John?
Mark, good job, nice presentation. How many spaces, parking spaces, do we currently have dedicated towards the ability to, recharge an electric vehicle?
Are you speaking in terms of around the community at large, or just the Cornish lot?
Around the community at large.
So I believe there are 11 chargers with 2 ports each, so that would be 22 spots.
And what's the long-term goal there?
Well, I think that we need to definitely take a look at planning that a little more, because there is going to be an increased need. What I'm looking at for the future here is I expect there to be funding available for fast chargers at some point soon with the federal monies that are coming down to the states. And so we may want to really look at that as the next option, because that's going to be really critical for tourism and economic development, and making sure that we have the fast charging capabilities here in Plymouth.
And I'm a little behind on this, so can you tell us, especially the scouts, what a fast charger is?
Sure. So there's essentially three different levels of electric vehicle charging. There's level 1 is just like if you were to plug in to the wall at your home, which is a very slow way of charging your electric vehicle. I have an electric vehicle, so I've used all three forms. Level 2 chargers are the chargers that you see around town, and you're getting about 25 miles added to your vehicle per hour, which isn't terrible, but if you're on the road and you're on a road trip, then you're probably going to be waiting all day if you have a low battery. And then the level 3 chargers are considered fast chargers, and I can get from I'd say almost 0 battery to 80% battery in about an hour. So if folks are traveling through Plymouth or are here in Plymouth and they need to charge up, they can stop and they'd be here for an hour or more, and that would mean probably stopping in restaurants or shops and hopefully staying, but it does provide that option. So there are some fast chargers if you're interested in seeing them at the Alltown gas station in Plymouth next to the police station. That's what they typically look like.
Okay, last question. I had read a story online about a community closer to Boston that had, I believe, was the first community to install the charging infrastructure, I believe, on a telephone pole.
Mm-hmm.
It was about 10 foot off the ground, and the benefit wasn't in anybody's way. If a car pulled up, they could just pull it down, be able to charge, and upon leaving, it would just retract up and be out of somebody's way. Is that something that you're familiar with, and is that catching on, or?
It is something I've read about and I've seen, but I haven't heard of that being the option that's expanding around communities. So I think it could serve a purpose, especially what I envision is areas that might be more rural, that you can attach, instead of doing underground wiring, you could attach it to the telephone pole at maybe a parking lot around a town conservation land or areas like that. But I do think that we'll keep an eye on that and see if other communities are adopting it. I've only heard, I believe it's either Medford or one of those communities up near Boston that that implemented that technology.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
And not for anyone vertically challenged for 10 feet, correct? Mr. Blitzer.
So, Mark, I'm sure I know the answer to this, but with all the mandates in the next 10 years with these electric vehicles, do you anticipate that the equipment's going to get a lot better and a lot cheaper?
Yeah, I do.
Kind of like what's happened with televisions and computers and everything else.
Sure. Well, I think it's interesting because the technology is advancing rapidly, and the cost of these vehicles are actually not exorbitant. I mean, we purchased the vehicles on the state bid list. The Ford Lightning was purchased for $39,000, and we got $7,500 off of that price. So it's actually
I'm
very
more interested
affordable.
in the charging stations because I know what they cost.
I'm
When I
sorry,
was on
the
the
charging
PGDC,
stations you're referencing?
we installed them, and I know what they cost. And there was grant money that got them purchased because we were lucky enough. But I know what they cost, and so it was a lot of money. So in the way it's going, the mandates in 10 years from now, there's going to be not many more gasoline vehicles being made. We're going to need charging stations all over the place. So I'm hoping that they get a lot more inexpensive to purchase.
Yeah, I think that will change, and that's why I mentioned that I think it will be important to take advantage of the grant funds that will be coming down from the federal government, because there is a push for not only localities to implement fast charging, but the state government is going to be implementing far more stations than what you see now. And so, yeah, we're going to need to take advantage of the grant funds that come down.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Pointel.
How you doing, Mark? Up on the Cornish lot, do we have, PGDC had one or two charges there, correct, Charlie? Yes. I Tatum? Did they get damaged, or was it an accident? Have they been replaced, or are this replacing those? Or?
So there are two existing charger ports up there.
Okay.
So we're going to add
an
additional 4.
Okay. I just got to ask the question because I went with my kid's sister to get a car a couple of weeks ago.
Sure.
And she backed a little bit away from the car because she was told by the salesperson that the batteries are wicked expensive to replace, and they were going through them. I guess I have the next two questions I have, or comments I have is, are we going to end up with battery dumps? And if so, how good is that for the water supply? And second off is, where are we getting all this electricity? We're taking down nuclear power plants faster than, we're making these electric vehicles, that's for sure. And I asked when I was down at the Pilgrim Station, or NTG, whatever you want to call it, back in my day it was Pilgrim Station. I asked the guy from NRC, I said, hey, where's the electric coming from? He said, you know what, that's a very good question. So in light of all this, I mean, to all our scouts out there, you know, the country doesn't plan very well for these things. You know, I mean, it's A for effort and A for what they're doing, but you need the electric to run the electric cars. And they say even all the trucks are going to be that. So I forget the year. I don't know if it's 2040, but we're already talking about it in our industries. And, you know, I'm just...
No, those are very
electric's
valid.
coming from.
Very valid points that, you know, cross my mind all the time when we're looking at these things. In terms of the batteries, there is recycling programs that are being funded by the federal government through the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act. So there's funds going towards increasing the capabilities of recycling batteries. But I think it's interesting that, you know, these batteries should be lasting for a considerable amount of time. The warranties are typically 100,000 miles on the battery system. So that tends to at least make me feel that they are anticipating a long life on these batteries that they're putting in the vehicles. So, but I really do value those comments. I think you're spot on in recognizing those challenges.
So how do we get it to Washington? I mean, they're having trouble getting a budget ready. I mean...
That's always the challenge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Reel. Our next order of business, but actually I just want to say something quick. We're at the end of our agenda, so for the VSA group, you know, when we end, we invite you guys all to come up here and take a picture behind the bench, because that's a good way to memorialize what you folks are doing. So just give us a few more minutes. Next is the distribution of the proposed charter.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Derek's letting me take this for a little bit. So just wanted to give you a little bit of background. You know, obviously the Charter Commission presented the Select Board with the proposed charter. I believe it was back in maybe December or November. And the Select Board was then tasked to, by state law, to distribute that charter to every registered voter household within the town. That's roughly about 27 to 28,000 mailings for the entire town. We've been going back and forth a little bit the past couple meetings. I gave you a letter in your packet. We've worked with the procurement office to determine a few different estimates. One of the estimates that I talked about previously at a previous meeting, we determined that the vendor was changing the prices around and wasn't able to give us the proper amount of paper. So we were a little bit worried about that. So we went with a proposed vendor that does extensive mailings for census, which is very similar to the mailings that you all stated that you wanted to have. I gave you a copy of that sample copy. It's not the actual charter, but it is a sample. And based off of your opinions tonight about what the quality of that paper, you know, feel free to make that judgment yourself. But we are proposing that the cost is of roughly around $75,000 to mail and also to print as well. We worked really hard to find, you know, the right paper quality, and then also find the easiest and most direct way to get to every household possible, and the most cost-effective manner. So we really, on the staff side, tried our best with that. So we recommend that if you would like to approve that tonight as presented, the Advisory and Finance Committee will consider a reserve fund transfer of $60,000, and then the remaining balance of the Charter Commission budget, which is roughly about $15,000, will offset that reserve fund transfer. So that is what we have presented for the board tonight.
Any discussion with the board? Mr. Mahoney?
So sending out something, we have a sample here. This is the type of material in this similar form. So 27 to 28,000 households, $75,000.
That is correct. There will also be additional copies of I believe you all agreed that it would be a red line version that would be sent, so that it includes the track changes from the existing charter to the proposed charter. That is color, so it's an additional cost. And then we also recommended that about 1,000 copies of the clean proposed charter be also printed as well for folks that might want those copies if they want to come to Town Hall or the Center for Active Living, the library. So we wanted to make sure that there were copies on hand for folks if they wanted that physical copy.
And when we discussed this almost a month ago, there was a $17,000 option.
Right.
Which was the newspaper version, the little...
It's a little bit less quality, and then we also believe that the vendor wasn't going to be able to provide the quality of service in the most expedient way possible.
Okay, thank you. And Madam Chair, has the Charter Commission weighed in on this?
Not that I heard of.
I don't recall. I mean, it is up to the board to make that decision.
Can I ask a question?
Mr. Belzer?
So Anthony, I must have misunderstood. I thought we got an email that the paper that we were going to use was similar to what Mr. Abbott had presented, and it was going to be around that price, the $17,000, $18,000 price, the same as the newspaper print. I must have misunderstood that.
Like I said, that the quote we received, we didn't believe it was a responsible bidder. You know, we wanted to make sure that was getting to the right hands at the right time, making sure. We all know that there's a lot of shortages when it comes to paper. And from my past experiences with smaller printers, it's a little bit difficult for them to get that paper in hand. So we utilized a larger vendor who has more of a stake in the game and can get that and acquire that paper in that short amount
So
of
the
time.
newspaper print, which is what I'm very comfortable with, I mean,
Yep.
that's what I grew up with, and for that was going to be 17, but they can't service. Okay. Because I would have been very comfortable to vote for that.
I understand.
17,000. Because then we could use the money left over from the charter committee, and it would cost us nothing. So 75,000 is a lot of money, plus. So, and that's the only option right now?
Mr.
And the plan is to get approval from this board and get this in the mail as soon as possible?
It would be, the board would approve it, and then it would go to an advisory and finance meeting next week, and they would approve the reserve fund transfer, and then we are good to go.
Now, is it a side-by-side document? Because I think it's important that it's a side-by-side document, meaning that the changes are right there so people can see it. And like I said, $75,000, like, yikes, honestly. And I have my own personal opinion about it, and I guess I'll just keep that to myself.
No.
No?
No.
Well, I think it's the worst document I've ever seen in my
Don't
6
get
years.
that honest about
So,
it.
and now we got to pay $75,000 to put it out there. Ridiculous. But anyway, how would the board like to proceed?
Excuse me. I'll move approval.
Do we have
I'll
a
second.
discussion? Mr. Helm?
Yeah, just real quickly. We have no choice but to mail this, to distribute this. That is state law. We had what I thought at the time, as it turns out to be, a ridiculously and noting, because I have a lot of friends still in it, the cost of paper, I was surprised, to say the least. So I'm also not surprised to find out that it was, and you didn't say it this way, but I will, bogus. It was an attempt to get the business, and then we would probably find out later that it was going to cost a lot more. And I know that $75,000 is a lot of money, but the work of this commission and what they are proposing, regardless of what one may feel about what they are proposing, is a major change in our government. It is not a major change, as many people thought, like suggesting town council or mayor. But within the structure of town meeting, it represents major changes to the way that our government functions. And I think that it's important that we have a clear, legible, handleable document in the hands of the registered voters, because they are the ones who are going to make the decision. And it is more expensive, as Anthony pointed out, because it is redlined, which means it is two-color. But red line is the most clear way to convey to the residents of Plymouth what was the charter, what remains of that charter, what is removed from that charter, and what is being added to our current charter. So I think we need to bite the bullet and go with it. I just think we owe it to the process, and we owe it to the residents, and we owe it to the future governance of this town.
Well, you certainly are right, Mr. Helm, that we really don't have a choice. Too bad the residents weren't offered a choice. And that's all I'll have to say. So we have a motion and we have a second. Discussion? All those in favor? Mr. Mahoney, Mr. Helm is yes. You're a no. You're a no. Sure, make me the bad guy. I actually do believe that the town deserves to see the document, although I have my opinions of it. So it does pass.
One more thing.
Sure.
I just couldn't justify that kind of money. We should have planned on this, having to spend that kind of money. So I don't know. I'm not confident a lot of people are going to read this document. So.
Well, if they don't read it, it's their responsibility, but at least we give them the opportunity to do so. So, okay, now the town manager's report, and it has to be quick because Mr. Brandisi is very ill and should be in bed. And I'm eating the lifesavers they gave me, the cough drops they gave me for you. So, go ahead, Derek.
I'll keep this very brief because I'll start coughing if I talk longer than a minute. I just wanted to bring to the board's attention that, as you all know, we experienced record-breaking extreme temperatures over the weekend. The fire department on Sunday alone responded to over 40 calls for service for water breaks. The town wasn't held from that. I talked to the school superintendent over the weekend, and I think they had about 4 breaks amongst various schools. And then on our side of the house, we received a phone call that the Cal had a water break in the vestibule at the lower level. Very minimal damage was done, and it was able to be restored, and the senior center, Cal, was able to reopen first thing Monday morning. The more serious break that we had over the weekend took place at the Symes house. We received a phone call on Sunday that there was, I believe it was a sprinkler head had burst on the main floor, on the first floor, in one of the living rooms. That caused considerable damage to that room. That's not being restored as of today. But because of the amount of water that had burst onto the main level, we had to shut down power, which knocked out all of the heating and HVAC systems, as you can imagine. The two tenants had to move out, unfortunately, Sunday evening into Monday. But I'm happy to report today that the water has been restored, the electricity has been restored, the gas has been restored, the HVAC systems have been restored. And as we speak right now, they are testing the sprinkler system. We are hopeful that this evening that sprinkler system will pass, and then the tenants will be able to return back to their homes this evening. We have Service Master because, again, there was some water damage on the first floor. Service Master has been there for the last 2 days, just drying out the area so that it'll be be able to be fully occupied as soon as the cleanup is complete. So that's all I have this evening for the board.
Thank you, Mr. Brandisi. Does the board have any questions or comments? Seeing none, good night, go to bed.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Feel better, Derek.
Feel better. And, okay, moving on to the next order of business. We have select board open discussion, new business, letters, old business. Mr.
I just have some new business. Derek, quickly before we leave.
Can you
Okay,
mute?
put your mic on.
Just real quick, I know there was a school committee meeting last night, and I'm not sure if you know the outcome of what's going on with the South Elementary School, with the issues down there, and is the situation going to be rectified? I don't know if you know, if you have any answers that you may not, but I just want to make sure that that they stay on top of that. And I know the superintendent cares about the welfare and the well-being of the kids down there. So I just want to make sure that that whole situation, from what I heard, because I get a lot of calls on it, I get a lot of emails on it, and there was some real concerned parents and teachers about what's going on there. So I just want to make sure we don't that gets squared away. I know we have February vacation coming up, so hopefully they can square that away. You know anything about it? Or?
I know, I talked to the school superintendent last week about this. I know that they brought in certified pest control operators to identify where there may be infestation and try to remediate as quickly as possible. From what I understand, but this is what I was told last week, so don't quote me on this, that they were going to use a non-chemical approach, which the non-chemical approach takes a little bit more time. I can tell you, though, that our health director, Karen Keene, she had gone down there. Our authority really is mostly in the kitchen area. We issue a food establishment permit in order so that they can operate food establishment. So we did send the health department in there. They took a look around. Their report came back very clean. They didn't find any evidence of rodent infestation in the kitchen or its surrounding areas. What they did note on the outside of the building, that they did find multiple what they would call rodent burrows around the building. So again, that's a obvious sign of some type of rodent infestation. I know the school department is committed to remedying this as quickly as possible, and we'll continue to work with them and give them the support that they need.
That's all I can ask for. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Helm?
Yeah, I have a couple things. First, it's come to my attention that due to COVID resignations and a number of one-year assignments, the terms of the members of the Distinguished Visitors Committee have expired. and the Select Board needs to reconstitute the membership of this committee. Working under the advice of our town clerk, I'd like to request that Anthony advertise the openings and that the vote for members and terms occur at the next Select Board meeting. As a way of background, the Distinguished Visitors Committee was established by the Select Board in April of 2011. Its membership is currently eight members, 7 of which are approved by the Board of Selectmen. They include a member of the Select Board, a member of the School Committee, a member of the Visitor Service Board, a member of the Plymouth Area Chamber of Commerce, a member of C. Plymouth, a member of Town Meeting, and a citizen at large. The 8th is appointed by the town moderator. So that's what we need to do, and I would like to request that we put this as an agenda item, a vote to reconstitute the membership of the DVC onto the next Select Board agenda.
I'm not sure we have to reconstitute anything. I think we just instruct Mr. Sinesi to put out, the need, and we get our folks that want to do it, and then we vote on it.
Okay, I guess I call it reconstitution, whatever, but yes.
Okay,
Yes, we can do that.
great. Mr. Quintel?
May I suggest that we go through the rest of the town committees and boards, Kelly and Anthony, and so we're not playing, what do you call it, Harry, whack or what?
Whack-a-mole.
Yeah, whack-a-mole, so we have no, let's just check anything with COVID. I'm sure there's a lot of things that have gone by the same road. So
Yeah.
we might as
Yes,
well just
Mr.
get them,
Quintal.
rather than bring them up every week, let's just kind of, when you get a chance, go
Absolutely.
through it, and then
We
we
are
know
aware
we're
of
all up
several.
to date.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Helm?
And one other thing, under the open discussion, or, well, actually letters, if emails constitute letters, I do have some sad news to impart. This morning, after a several-month illness, Charlotte Foltz passed away peacefully with her husband, Dawn, and her family by her side. I bring this up tonight as many involved in town and state government, whether on committees, holding elected office, or town administration, will be familiar with Charlotte as she had a tremendous love for Plymouth and a belief in what we could become. And she never shied away from taking action or questioning us. For me, she was a beloved friend who never let our friendship stand in the way of demanding that I always think of the residents of Plymouth before anything or anyone else, and insisting that I expect more of myself than she did. Many will miss you, Charlotte, or as I called you, Plymouth's Queen of FOIA requests.
Thank you. Anyone else? John?
Through the chair, I think that, I believe you yourself had mentioned a couple of months ago, potentially having a discussion about a building moratorium. And I'm not saying I'm in favor of one, but I think that this community, given that everything that is going on, I would request it at your convenience. There's an agenda item so we can have a public and open discussion about the ramifications. I know Mr. Hartman has been through this before. He can clearly outline some of the pros and cons, and I'm sure Ms. Barrett would like to weigh in, but I think that discussion needs to be had.
Anthony, would you have that put on one of our agendas upcoming?
Absolutely.
If I could make a recommendation, if you don't mind, Madam Chair.
Sure.
I've been talking to the planning director, Lee Harmon, about the possibility of maybe having a joint meeting with the planning board. And as Selectman Mahoney brings up, this is one item, certainly that's an important item across the community that can be discussed. But then there's also this other item that I think we need to start having public discussions about, and it's the new regulations for MBTA communities. And the expectation by state officials that MBTA communities, which we are one because we're an abutting community to Kingston, would have to have more dense housing in their communities. In talking to Mr. Hartman, and he's projecting that because of these new regulations, the state would be expecting the town to have to build 3,000 more homes here in the community. So I do think, and him and I have been discussing, that maybe it's time that we have a joint meeting with the select board and the planning board to discuss this MBTA communities regulations. And now with this issue on a moratorium, I think we would have a very full agenda for both boards to consider.
Yeah, that sounds good. And also, I'd like to know that I believe, or we've been told, and I'm not sure if it's true or if they're finding other ways around it. If we choose not to accept the mass grants, that we don't have to go by that MBTA ruling. So one of the things that I'd like to find out is how much does the town accept in those mass grants? And I think that I personally would rather say, no, we don't want your grants and we don't want 3,000 new homes. So, but that's not my decision alone. So, but yes, if we can get that on the agenda so we can have a discussion, and probably one of the only things on the agenda for that evening.
Absolutely.
So, any other new business, old business, letters, open discussion? No? Okay. We're going to invite the BSA up here to take pictures, and in the meantime, I will make a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Unanimous. This meeting is adjourned.